check if I'm streaming. How's y'all trading day?
Oh, pretty good today. Pretty good. I I passed two more evals and I'm done for the year, pretty much.
Oh, nice, nice. Congratulations on that.
I'm gonna take a break. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I feel like this time of the year is actually sometimes can present some good opportunities. You know. I also know it's kind of slow. It's been a little weird. Okay. I am live. All right. I feel like this time of the year is actually sometimes.
Yeah, you're kind of breaking up. Yeah, I'm gonna just do the sim for the rest of the year because my hunch is tomorrow we're gonna be very slow and after Christmas it's just gonna be dead.
Yeah, and truthfully, I like slow sometimes. You know, um, slow can be good in the sense where things are more deliberate, so you have more opportunities to enter, right? Okay, we'll get started on today's chart. Um, was there any entries that you guys had take that you guys had liked or want to take a look at?
Uh, oh yeah, yeah. Today was like seesaw day.
Yeah, I mean,
Well,
pretty much a mixed trading, and truthfully, I prefer a mixed trading day like this versus yesterday, where it's just kind of like a runaway trend.
mhm. Yeah.
I had one trade that was I had marked from just the early session, right after the open. There was this, um, I guess, more of a visual two legs back here. I think this is kind of a new sort of staple in this kind of past world where we get this, and everyone kind of gets up in arms when they say, "Oh, it's just a first entry back," right? But the reality is, it's a first entry back that gets denied by a triple test, right? We saw it a couple times today, where yes, we do call this. I mean, I don't even know. Does it make a new low here? I think it does. Yeah. So this would be called a first entry, but really it's a triple test that's denying the attempt at the second leg back up, right? It's one of those things where we know that we're trying to get down here, right? And although we are expecting two legs back, it's trading is as much of reading the setups, right? But it's also just as much seeing what setups are getting denied and for what reason. I think that is kind of one of the biggest takeaways from today, right? I do want to come back and talk about this one. I know there was some discussion on this one, but
Oh,
uh,
I want to talk about much earlier. If you can go back, the one that Thomas Wade took. Uh, well, yeah, yeah. Like it's in the middle of your screen. At the top. Yeah, go to the right, to the right, to the right. Keep going, keep going. Yeah, this one. No, a
this
couple
one,
to the left. No,
this.
no. Yes. Yeah, this long. Yeah, it's
As a
too.
long,
No, 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 no. Long.
huh?
He took a long. Yeah.
You took a long here.
Yes, yes. It's engulfing green bar. Somebody posted it.
I mean, I don't know why you take. I mean, it's. Okay.
It's. I mean, it's so. Yeah. It's enough to get out till the like highest of the
Mhm.
overnight one, or is it after opening? But it's not enough to get out. It's the closest one. This is what it is.
It's just there's just so,
it
there's so much retracement here, you know, and
it would work if you take it on engulfing.
yeah, but
But it's I mean, that's I had a lot of losses like that. I didn't take it, but because I felt it's not,
so
it's done. The move done.
I think the big thing here, right, is Spike and I talked about this yesterday. It's you know when you have a day like yesterday where we're in such a like a large trending move down, right? You're going to see
Hmm.
shallow corrections, right? Just because the trading being zero sum, right? There's a move in one direction, and there's not enough buying to really create a deep correction on that, right? Versus here, when you have
Hmm.
this really shallow correction in a mixed trading area, that to me, this is where it's like certain setups on certain days, it really depends on the type of day that's happening beforehand, right? So, I mean, we've already shown signs of, this kind of snaking, right? So
Right, right.
there's a difference between taking what looks like this setup on a day like today versus a day like yesterday, right?
So you say in shallow correction, it's all the dodges before the red one, right?
It just really is on like, for instance, I'll bring up yesterday's chart, right? Like a shallow correction on a trending day is due to um, just a lack. It's because of the strength of the trend. There's so if we're
Hmm.
if we're
Right.
constantly moving in one direction, right, and we're trying to correct off the bottom here, and if there's so much selling, there's not enough buying to create a two-legged move back here, right? It's because remember trading is about zero sum. There's buying and there's selling. Well, there's not enough buying that's happening to get the market back up to a key entry point and make two legs back. So you get these really shallow corrections, right? Versus here, when you have a shallow correction like that, right, and it's just eaten up by this
Hmm.
entire signal bar, what I see here, right, is number one, there's just this is a very kind of indecisive move back, and number two, this size of this bar, it's most of it is the move has already happened, right?
Right,
So this is like
right.
if you're entering, oops, like if you have a second entry long, right? You enter there, right? If like we try to enter down here on a second entry long, this is like entering like up here, you know.
Hmm. Hmm.
Whenever I do the
Yeah, I
YouTube thing,
agree. It's hello.
yeah, I'm trying to bring up yesterday's chart, but my computer really slows down when I do the YouTube thing. Yeah, so on a day like yesterday, right, where you see we're moving and the attempts to make it back are just not strong because it's just, when the market decided that we're moving down, there's just not enough buying that takes us back to the key entry point. And that's why you kind of see, instead of having these direct moves back to the key entry point, like after here moves back, it just has to go sideways because the upwards pressure here is not strong enough to change the angle back up. It has to go sideways to reach this key entry point, then it can continue down, right? But then it becomes late in the day. So there's a difference between shallow corrections on a day like yesterday versus a shallower correction in a mixed trading kind of area, right? Um, didn't see too much here in like the middle part of the day. Um, I think, I mean, I wasn't really trading on this earlier session. I didn't see much. Was there anything you guys want to talk about here from here? Because I didn't see much.
To be fair, I didn't really see that much today, only that first one that you saw at 0847. that was the only one. And then I finished an hour and a half early today.
Nice. I do think there are some opportunities presented later in the day. I'll walk through some of these. I think if there's one thing that we've been kind of consistently talking about, right, and I think are just real important concepts here, there's a reason why Dan has said he likes mixed kind of areas, right, mixed trading, and it all has to do with this. When prices are mixed, right, we can establish these support and resistance areas much more strongly, right? In the sense where, okay, like for instance, this trade here, I think will be marked. I'm not sure if this trend line is accurate, so I'll just move that there. And really, this is the same kind of thing we're looking at. I had wanted this to move up a little bit more, but I'll explain what's happening here, right? When we have this entire mixed area, we have this move up, we have the break, 2 leg down, we have this kind of almost semi-spiking channel that gets kind of overshot, however you want to call it, right? And then we start moving down in this direction. Basically, a triple test here is really a sign of, whereas yesterday we looked at that long downtrend chart, we're like, okay, no matter what, that long downtrend is the dominant pattern, right? In this scenario, we're saying, okay, all the dominant patterns have kind of been reset and played out and everything's kind of gotten to its extreme. So if something kind of shows up, we are more confident in that pattern being having an influence on the market versus when there's all these other things going on, right? So in this scenario, what's happening here is, I know we've talked about this in the past, and I have said I'm going to be a little more aggressive on this, is when you have these sort of weak first tests within a triple test, right? But really it's, you have this move down, and you have a first leg back to a new extreme, but in this type of scenario, I'm usually expecting the second leg down, especially when you see how strong this rejects here at the bottom side of the EMA, right? And really what this is I know there were some questions on, is this just a first entry? Yes, but this is where we need to look at what price action is. Like if you try to look at things through a lens and a scope of second entries, triple tests, whatever, right? You're going to limit yourself as to what Dan talks about is what is the market trying to do, right? So yes, I think ideally we'd want a 2 legs back here, right? But what's happening is prices have already been strongly rejected off this bottom side of the EMA, right? So that's one. Prices have also then rejected twice off this developing area of resistance, right? So yes, do prices want to move in 2s back up to here? Of course. But as it's attempting to move in 2s back up here, it is getting rejected by 2 areas that we've seen prices reject off prior, right? So how do we enter that? Well, when we look at it from the perspective of, okay, this is where we call things triple tests, we call things whatever, but a triple test is really, like I said, it's similar to a failure where we establish one area, we test it once, we test it twice, prices have decided we are not going to break that, so then we continue down in the opposite direction. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Very similar thing happening over here, although I would say this one is much more risky just because of the choppiness of it, right? We've talked about how decisive moves are usually more predictable moves, right? So I think for this scenario, right, when you look at it, we can see that. Let me see if I can just make this a little cleaner now that we've gone through it. And if you guys remember, want to do that one-on-one with Dan. I'm sorry if I'm marking this up and it's getting a little confusing. I'm trying to keep as organized here as possible, right? The foundation for 90% of trades and PATs are a trend, right? Break, two legs to a new low, right? And then rejection, right? Everything in PATs is kind of based off of this general basic concept, right? It happens in different iterations, right? And here, right, part of the reason why we can get a little more aggressive here on the triple test is number one, like we just mentioned, you have these proven areas of rejection already, right? We've already strong rejection off the EMA, strong rejection off this developing resistance, even though we have mentioned when you have resistance over here is not great. And the main reason for this is because we don't know if this resistance point is because of the actual resistance or part of this short-term trend down, right? But with that being said, we are expecting a move, break, two legs down, considering this has already been broken and tested, right? Over here, right, we have much less of a choppy move, or much more of a choppy movement, right? So you have this short-term trend down, but you can see within the attempts of making our multiple legs down, prices just start chopping, right? And this is where I think this one, you could take it. I think it's much more aggressive than this one. I think if you try to just say, okay, we are in maybe a little small trading range here. My only issue here is at this point in the day, and let me start cleaning this up a bit. Or at this point, I was playing with the idea of a spiking channel, right? And that's mainly because, and like I said, I've always tried to use the EMA slope as a general guide, right? So maybe there's a larger trend here, but from the EMA, I see one move, second move, right? I see we start to move down, but then I see the EMA start to fall into this other slope. So I try to at least have my trend mirror the slope in some cases here, right? Now, this is kind of a similar concept here where I think prices here are trying to correct, but it's getting denied, right? So it's similar concept here where, okay, we're in some choppiness, but prices have shown 1, 2, 3, 4 times to try to break this EMA. And what's happening is prices are trying to move in twos. Like we have moved down, right? And I think there's maybe some element of trying to get a retest of this still, but essentially prices are trying to correct, but this down kind of flavor and force is denying it. So prices are essentially getting squished here, right? So that's where I think on this one, if you want to get more aggressive with the triple test, I think you can take it. I think this is one of those where if you were to replicate this exact formation of bars and put it somewhere else on a chart on a different day, you'd really need to be careful. But I think there's enough here to say, okay, we're showing that we have kind of added this kind of downward movement to it. Prices have multiple times tried to break not just this resistance point, but then this bottom of the EMA, right? And based on the fact that we've had 1, 2, we should be getting a 1, 2 in the opposite direction. This leg never really fully got played out. So we could make our best guess here that we're going to continue down lower. It is aggressive just because of choppiness. Does anyone have anything they want to comment on that, on either this one or this one?
No, I like your analysis. The only things I would add is if one leg down, then there is a congestion. If it's downtrend, it's gonna do another leg down generally.
Yeah.
With a congestion in the middle. Yeah. And it's off the tops to get enough place to get out. And it's also a trap. It's a bull trap.
This is one of those scenarios where
Oh, EMA is holding. EMA is like holding
Yeah.
3 times before that, and it's closed below EMA. So it's like 3 or 4 positive sinks here. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's one of those things where we looked at, in those drills and exercises, we looked at Dan's actual entries and trades that he marks, right? There's a very common thread, right? And what that common thread is, either he really, okay, it's basically one of, I would say, 3 things, right? He's looking for a dominant, the number one thing Dan is constantly looking for is a dominant pattern, right? And I think the only real difference in the way that he looks for a dominant pattern versus how a lot of traders look for the dominant pattern, right? And you'll see in the Discord where you see a lot of traders asking, is this the trend? Is this the trend? Is this the trend, right? It's almost like if you have to ask, it's probably not a strong enough or a dominant pattern, right? I think we're all trained with our eye enough to see when there's a very obvious dominant pattern. So if you have to kind of struggle to find it, it's likely that's not it, right? So number one, Dan is looking for a strong, dominant trend line, right? If that's not the case, what he's looking for is he's looking for the absence of a dominant trend line. I think that's where it trips up a lot of traders, where when he is saying, okay, if there is no dominant pattern or area, right, kind of like over here, right? Like I said, we had already kind of, after this move down, we've kind of had this reset, and now we're kind of in a, okay, it's almost like, someone dropped a bomb and the playing field has been leveled, right? Everything that needs to get retested and has an influence has kind of been reset. So in areas like that, what Dan will do is then he will look for a shorter term key entry point, right, to have an influence on the market, right? It's very similar to, like, if you try to open up like a restaurant in a very small city, you're going to be a much more dominant factor than if you try to move to New York and try to open a restaurant, right? There's just so much other shit going on versus, this triple test on other scenarios isn't going to be that strong, and this triple test in other scenarios isn't going to be that strong, right? Like if we're in an uptrend and you try to take this trade as a triple test, it's not going to work because there is a force moving against it. Well, when all the forces kind of clear out and you look at it from, okay, I can take a shorter term thing, right? That is one common thing that Dan is looking for. And I will say the last thing is in the absence of, key entry points and other trends, he's looking for real decisive moves, right? Because the reality is, for instance, right, the reason this is congesting is because it's trying to move cleanly, but is getting rejected off key entry points and getting pushed down, right? So does that make sense? Where the market here is trying to correct, right? It's trying to, but it's getting denied by something else, right? Conversely, when you start seeing areas that have these clean moves and clean legs, then we can say, okay, we can trust some of these moves now more because we are showing signs that the key entry points and trends aren't having an influence on the market, right? I think, unfortunately, I want to call at this time. But I think you could take this one as a little more aggressive triple test, right? Confirms the key entry point, confirms this kind of area of resistance here. The argument here is that it's moved kind of far, right? I think if you have this key entry point drawn, you can take it. Did anyone take a look at this one or trade this one in real time?
No, I was done by that time.
Yeah, we should have stayed on. I think that's definitely one that I would have taken. Same with the next one afterwards.
Yeah, this one over here. So
yeah, I really like the look of that one.
Yeah, and this is one of those where, and this is kind of semi-anecdotal, right? I'll put it in terms like this on this one, where I think it was aggressive. I think it's a green arrow on Mac's chart if it gets marked. Here's what I don't like about it, right? For me,
I'm sorry, could we go back to the other one?
This one?
So the only negative here, I see, if you draw the short-term uptrend, it's still, there is no break yet.
Yeah, but, right, that's
but
also...
there is all like three other ones.
So,
yeah.
You can also, and I'll say this carefully because it's, you need to be mindful of how you conceptualize this. You can also make the argument that the fact that there's no break on the short-term trend kind of actually enforces the trend lines themselves, right? So if you look over,
no, I think it's a very good trade. Yeah, I think it's very good.
I don't know about very. I still think it's slightly aggressive, just in the fact that this is kind of a move that we're seeing get played out. So it's just like a single move up. I would have preferred to have the break or a lower high, right? But what you can do is you can look over here and say, okay, we had this singular move up, right? Maybe there's an overshoot, but it looks like there was a rejection point here when there should have been a retest, right? And what we know about short-term trends is that short-term trends will work unless they are being denied by something else, right? So it's kind of like, how early do you want to be on this, right? But it's one of those things where whether it's getting denied by kind of this resistance area or this possible key entry point, you can say, okay, we are working directly to it and we are getting denied here. I think what really helps this trade too is you have a ton of room to the EMA, right? So it's almost like it gives you the space to be aggressive because, okay, even if we do get the break and the retest, on this break and the retest, we're likely going to get a retest or a move at least back to the EMA, right? And as it's moving to the EMA, it starts picking the momentum to break through. Does that make sense?
Right. Yeah. It's all very good points. I agree with that. Yeah.
And then on this one, and I know Spike said just he likes to look at it, and I think this is one trade that we have studied at length, over the past couple of weeks, and we're not. I will say I'm not perfect at seeing these yet, right? As you can tell, you kind of get caught up in this continued move up. One thing that I have noticed, I was kind of looking for maybe a triple test up here, didn't really get it. I think the important things here, just some things I'll note is, we've already had a pretty strong rejection off the EMA at one time, right? So then on this break and the new high, I usually will be waiting for a second leg up because the initial draw and magnetism of the EMA has already occurred and it's already rejected pretty strongly. As you can see, that's what happens. I would say what has it's going for it, right, is you do have a lot of room back to the EMA. So you have about 6 points of room here. So even if you decide to get aggressive on this, you have about 6 points of room back, right? The other thing is I don't like it. Usually on these type of moves, I like the strong signal bar, right? This signal bar is a little weak in the grand scope of this entire move, right? If that makes sense, right? I don't really like signal bars that if it went one tick in the other direction, it would be neutral, right? So that's one thing I have going against it. It's also, we don't really know if this is a failed break here, but this is just one of those two we've talked about. The foundation for everything in PATS is short-term trend, break, new high, or or new low, however you want to put it. And it really gives you the ability to enter trades and conceptualize the entire chart instead of just viewing everything as counting ticks and counting wicks and looking at everything from a second entry, short or long point of view, right?
Isn't
like a small, yeah. What's up, Silas?
I get that totally, but ever since I've actually like started paying attention to short-term trends and
Mhm.
deeply in the last year, they almost always, when I'm looking at them, get 2 legs to a new high.
Yeah.
Especially if they, if they want to fuck me or whatever.
Yeah.
Like,
Well,
why are you so confident that thing's not just gonna either tick lower and go for another leg up after the break, or maybe move a bit and then still go up? Because they
well, it
go
does.
for 2 legs.
It does. I mean, look. I mean, the reality is this
Well, yeah,
move.
it does. But why were you confident you were going to go back to the EMA or even have enough room or get a 6 ticks? Like,
So the term I've been using is width, right? So for me in this scenario, having this much room back to the EMA, right? And it kind of gives me the room to where even if I make a misread on that, I likely will at least get the move back to the EMA.
why? I've seen
Because
it like completely miss EMA because of the momentum many times.
yeah, and let's say it moves all the way up here. This is where it does become a feel thing based on the size of the signal bar, how far it moves from the EMA, right? And you know, I think even on Discard when I entered this trade, I truthfully was waiting for the second leg up. I would have preferred the second leg up, but it was an aggressive move on my end to enter it a little early, just because of we do have the move up, we have the break, middle of the pattern, we're shooting up, and there's a ton of room to the EMA. Right.
Yeah.
So
I have trouble with everyone that's like, yeah, that's a great trade. I love it. It looks good. Like, what? I don't like. What are you talking about? Like, that's a super aggressive trade. Like, I don't care. I mean, I get that things move in twos, but come on. Like, we've all seen short-term trends get 2 legs constantly and consistently.
and I think foundationally, it's a bet on this trend being, correct, and I think we may end up getting the retest at the very end. But this is where quality of trend matters, right? It's we are looking at a
like
move
you were
down.
banking, we were trying to test that downtrend. Yeah, like, and that's probably why I made it back to the EMA and like had a nice. You're right. Like, it's great. That's a good read, but
well, it's an okay read, right? And it's in order for all of us to get better at this type of setup, you kind of got to get a little more aggressive at times. And this is one where I said I was not completely confident that we are going to get a full reversal out of here, right? A full rejection out of here.
yeah.
And I said part of the reason too is when you have these small weak signal bars, this is not a good sign of a convincing rejection point here, right?
Yeah.
This thing ticks up one tick and it's almost a doji, right?
Right.
But
that's why I'm having trouble with that word aggressive lately. Like, I can't. I got to keep it out of my vocabulary, or I'm not going to go anywhere.
I think when it comes to if you want to look at from what is aggressive versus what is not, I would say is pick one style of trade or two style of trades and be aggressive just on those. So when those scenarios present themselves, right, then you say, okay, I've already decided I'm going to be aggressive on this style of setup, right? I think I mentioned on some of the calls from either, the last time I was not sick, which I think maybe earlier last week or whenever, we did a look at a lot of Dan's entries, right? If we went to the end of day chart and looked at a lot of Dan's entries, you're going to see a lot of triple tests that happen in a short time period that happen after trends. So I've decided I'm going to be more aggressive on those style of setups. So it's almost like I get to be aggressive, but I can see that style of setup coming from, I don't want to say a mile away, but it's just it's predetermined when I'm going to be aggressive, right?
Right.
I've also decided on moves like this where, like you said, how do we know when we're going to get a second leg up, right? Well, I decided I'm going to spend as much time as it's going to take to learn how to do that, right? And if that involves me taking more of those and getting semi-burned with those, and that's just kind of, what it is,
Sure.
right?
It's good. I mean, like you said, you took on one account. You didn't go all in. So like,
Yeah.
that's good. Yeah.
But, and it's like I had the call with Dan, right? Foundationally, everything I'm looking in Pats is this whole concept that, like for instance, let me see if I can find a good example of it. Like this, where you have a trend break to a new low, is the same exact thing as, a second entry short, right? It's all the same exact concept, right? And this break is the same thing as a failed breakout concept, right? Markets moving twos, right? So it's kind of like this with the break and then 2 legs up, and then this on a smaller level, and then this right here, this kind of second entry long that happened after close. It's all the same thing. There are the size differences, obviously, but conceptually, it's all the same thing. Right? It's all based off of. And I think I was talking to Spike about this yesterday. There was a talk on Discord of Matt never talks about rejection. Where I would you go through Max Manuel, I don't think he says the word rejection one time, but I would also argue that I would say that all of Pat's, all of Max trading, everything is rejection. Like the entire everything, every concept, every nuance, every technique is all a lesson in rejection. Right? It's how do we know that prices are moving in a direction, and we are confident that they are stopping moving in that direction, and will continue and will start moving in the opposite direction. Right? You can call it whatever you want, but that's rejection. Right? Every entry we look at, rejection, rejection, rejection. Right? Are there signs that prices are rejecting? Yes, and that's congestion. Right? So it's all kind of interconnected. Was there any particular setups from either today or for anyone on the call from yesterday or earlier this week? Yeah, go ahead.
It's all right. I came in late. I don't mean to hijack it. I'm gonna go
Yeah.
to bed. It's almost midnight here. But did anyone look at that second entry long right at the close? That kind of pissed me off actually. I feel like I've been waiting for days, and that came and worked perfectly. But if you have a spike and channel there, it's like that short-term trend doesn't have a break in a new low, in my opinion, and it almost is outside. I can argue with that. It's right there, but yeah, however you want to draw it,
yeah, no, I think
couldn't take that because of the short-term trend, but it's.
I think for this one, right, and this is kind of just circled around. I mean, it's obviously after the kind of trading hours, but this one is more of a. If you go look at Max Manuel, right, where he talks about, what is a trend, right, and he will say, when prices are dominantly above the EMA, we take prices that come back to the EMA and go long. When prices are predominantly below the EMA, we take trades that, come back to the EMA and go short, right? And this is, I think the geometry gets a little wonky here because the volume is dying after hours, right? So what you're saying is you're worried about this, right?
Yep. I literally have trauma screenshots in my head of taking that exact setup.
If this was during trading hours, right? You're not gonna like this. I can guarantee you, Mac would have done it like this.
Of course he would, because it's after the fact and it worked.
Well,
I can make that argument. long.
Kind of got to look at it from the fact where it's, you know,
So I agree with Silas. It could be driven. Yeah, it could be. You can draw it two ways, and there is no way around it to know how is it correct.
Yeah, I can't speak for myself, afford to not know, to have that be a subjective thing. It's just,
Yeah.
that's not how the system works.
It's just unpredictable. It could be that's why you probably cannot take it
well,
Yeah.
because of that.
and like I just said, right? You know, when you look at Max Mayo in Tesla, what is a trend? Those prices are predominantly above the EMA, right? And if you look at what he writes about how we only have one indicator, right? I know everyone talks about book maps and all those other indicators. We have one indicator if we really look at it. We have the 21 EMA, right? The only other tool we have besides the 21 EMA is a little pencil thing that we used to draw trend lines, right? Well, we just kind of saw that, I would say, with this development of these moves, that we're in a mixed trading. So I wouldn't say there's any dominant pattern, right? So prices have rejected off this EMA one time, two times, three times, four times, right? So is this a 99% trade with all that considered? Probably not, right? But
So it's rejected 5 times of EMA. So maybe the move is over, and now it's rolling over.
Exactly.
well,
Dan said strong toe.
but why would it be over though, right? Because it's because usually when a move is over, it's because it's either run out of steam or there's another something on the market that's influencing it, right? Now, just to this argument,
downtrend that doesn't have a test.
and just to this argument, right? If you are going to get caught up trying to draw short-term trend lines on every single second entry, you're probably never going to take a trade, right? Because then you can make the argument for every short-term trend, right? Because all of Pat, right, is, you know, prices move in twos, and then prices move in twos, right? Prices move in twos, prices move in twos, right? This is perfect patch, right? And what you're going to end up doing is on every single move.
So one
say,
more thing.
Can't take that short-term trend line. Can't take that short-term trend line, right? Can't take that short-term trend line, right? It is kind of what you guys are getting at, where on every single move in twos, you can't take it, even though on this style of trading, the entry is here, right? The entry is here. The entry is here, and the entry is here, right? So the only thing that I would say that wasn't mentioned on this is that typically if you're breaking through a trend line, right?
Is everyone having RJ break up super bad? Like, I don't know if it's just me.
Yeah, no, I'm getting
Pick it up.
Yeah.
Sorry, did you guys say I was breaking up or?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I get what you're saying. You
Yeah.
can make an argument, but like a lot of the times when we're watching for that, you can see an obvious break in a new extreme, and then making it safe to take the trade in the other direction to fit our bias. Whether it's trying to test or not. Like there are instances where you can't make that argument because it follows the rules that we talk about.
Yeah.
They're not all like that, but often there's this type of setup here, and I mean, in my brain, it's etched that they will fail if you don't have a test for that short-term trend, unless it's like a queen two legs off of a key entry point, and this looks like it's a break. So short-term trends break, dominant trends. Like,
Yeah.
That's another red flag.
Well, it's kind of one of those things where, okay, maybe you do want to draw it wider, right? And it's like we were talking about earlier, like on this move, right?
I don't even know why. I don't even know how you could draw it thinner unless you just wanted to like fucking troll. Like,
Well,
there's no.
it's because this move is so small on a. Because I mean that's kind of like it's okay.
It is too leggy. I get it. I'll give you that. Like, I can see it. It's visually, you can tell. It's like.
Well, it's kind of like on a different time frame. This is not a great example because this one doesn't really reverse here, but it's no different than this, right? Versus this. That makes sense. Or like this, right? Versus if you do like that, right?
Get it? Yeah, I definitely get it. But we're watching the 2000 tick, and more often than not, if you get that part wrong, it's gonna. That's the whole point.
So this is where it does develop some reading skills in the sense where there is a level of objectivity, but then there is a subjective level, right? Where it's like I don't know if you were on line for the call, this part's on this, where we talked about here, right? Where you have this triple test and you have this short-term trend working up to it that gets denied here by this triple test and this possible trend line, right? These aren't the best examples, but I'm just using them here, right? So are we expecting a retest of this triple test or of this short-term trend? Yes. In every scenario, we're expecting this, right? Now,
well, like you said, there's a more dominant structure, right? Like downtrend, like.
So in this scenario, when you have a short-term trend working down here, right? We're expecting two different things, right? We are expecting, one, in trading, that if prices are in a short-term trend, they will continue in that trend until broken, right? Two, we are expecting two legs back to an EMA if prices are trending up and then continue with the EMA, right? So in this scenario, you have one thing that's happening and you have another thing that's happening. Well, those are two opposing things, and in almost every trade, you are going to have two opposing things happening, right?
Right, but this isn't off of a key entry point. It's after a break. There's no way you can draw out where that setup happens right at a key entry point. Like the previous, downtrend, short-term trends that don't get tested. Yeah. Those are happening right on a key entry point. Like this is a break. So if we're trying to follow some type of rule set, right? Like the short-term trend that breaks the key entry point is usually going to try and get a test. And then, the only argument you could make is, oh, it's drawn like this, man.
So I talked to Dan on this, and the only thing I know he's noted on that is, this explanation is very vague, but this is where I kind of see it here, is you normally want the short-term trend to break the larger trend, unless it looks like you're getting two clean legs back.
Yeah, I mean, I get that. That makes sense. If you get
sometimes when you do get the two clean legs back, that overrides what is normally the short-term trend. Because a lot of times we're not moving well on the break, right? So that's why things are falling short-term trend. And then you could also make the argument that if you draw out the first two swings, this is the close outside, and you still get the break outside. Right. Yeah. So it's just gauging that short-term trend versus the strength of the rejection, and it's not going to be perfect. But
yeah, I just need to be okay with skipping it, and like that's the actual game, the psychology part of not being frustrated by that. Cool, it didn't fit my rules, whatever. Like, yeah.
And then what usually ends up happening is you have these stronger rules, and then over time you kind of loosen up those rules. I don't say loosen, but you learn to react to the rules in different ways, right?
Sure.
Yeah. So.
Oh, sorry, that was long-winded, guys. But thanks for
No
letting
worries.
me.
I think this is an important concept here because it's not easy, right? Um, if there's one thing I've noticed is traders get a little bit too trend happy in these areas where it's, you know, on a day like yesterday when we have a big downtrend, it's very easy to spot that. But in mixed trading, we're trying to abide by trend lines that aren't, you know, they're not influencing the market as well as other things are.
Yeah. The hardest part I'm having though is there has to be a certain level of objectivity. Otherwise, we're all just like making up whatever the fuck we want.
Oh,
Like, and Dan has actually brought more objectivity into my trading because like he explained things to me that I didn't understand before. Oh, and that's why they work. Okay, yeah, it's because of the short-term trends break, larger entry point, like those types of rules I didn't even know. And those are objective truths,
yeah.
right? Like, the more we're just like, no, this is 2 legs, so it was good, or like, it just, I don't know, it frustrates the fuck out of me.
The best way I can put it is if there's one thing that makes Dan so good at trading, is he's waiting for the times of the day and the times on the chart to where the objective moves happen, right? I make a statement.
Yeah.
Prices will tend to move predictably out of areas that they move predictably into, right? It's not one of those things where, okay, I'm waiting for objective areas to trade, and then in every section of the chart, there's going to be something objective to see there, right? In so many areas of the chart, it's like, oh, I don't know what's going on, right? Dan even says probably, for at least 60% of the day, he's just waiting for more price action,
Right. That's fine. Yeah, I get that totally. I just want to, I want to know what to do at a trend key entry point. If I could just fucking figure that out, like a decently confirmed trend key entry point. I want to know what to do in every situation. Like, what did the short-term trend do? What kind of signal bar? Do I wait for a lower high because of the short-term trend that made it back to the other side of the key entry point? Like, if I could just fucking solve that, I'll sit on my hands until it happens. But even that has so much nuance.
Well, if you would want, what we can do is it's going to require a little bit of work on your end. I mean, we all should be studying anyways, right? But
For sure.
if you can find the time, go through as many of Dan's end of day charts, right? Because they're all there in Discord.
Yeah.
And just have them saved, right? And we can go through all the trend lines of, what to do in certain scenarios and stuff like that. Even if you could just find like 3 or 4 of them, we'll have a call probably different time of day, so you can make it on earlier, and we can just go over all of those. And we just do 3 to 4 a week. Maybe that's just it's slow, but then over the course of a couple months, that's 60 more charts that you looked at that you didn't already study.
Right. Yeah. No, I appreciate that. Yeah. Let's talk about it when I'm not half asleep.
I mean, that's how I've approached all this group study stuff that we do. And I know, for instance, Spike was telling me yesterday that he had passed a bunch more evals last week. It's every hour that you put in is, it's going to be an hour closer to, being more profitable, right?
Right.
Otherwise, we're just showing up every day and doing the same thing.
Yeah. Yep. I'm finding myself more frustrated just with the noise too. I need to turn off the chat, I think.
Well, yeah, I mean, if it's for everyone too, you're going to realize on every single swing, there's going to be someone in Discord to take that trade.
Yeah.
So you can't be like, oh, well,
I didn't think it affected me before, but yeah.
That's why half the days I'm not in there. So.
Yeah. Cool, man. I gotta go, you guys. I appreciate you, RJ. Again, thank you. I haven't been around lately, but I appreciate it.
Find a couple charts, and even if you just post it in the group study channel, And that goes for everyone. If there's any charts or any specific things, just post in the group study and we'll review them when we do have these calls.
Cool, man. Thank you.
Sounds good.
Is there anything else that anyone wants to discuss from today or anything of the sort? Okay. I believe tomorrow's Friday. I should be available for a call. And I don't know if anyone's going to be trading next week or if there's even going to be anything worth trading, but I think I'll still be at least hosting some of these calls next week as well. You know, if we're not going to be trading during the holidays, might as well put extra hours studying. So, if no one else has any
Sounds
other
like a plan.
questions, I think we'll call it there.